Scars are often seen as flaws, imperfections we try to hide from the world. But the truth is, every scar we carry is a silent witness to a battle we fought and survived. Whether those scars are physical, emotional, or psychological, they represent something deeply powerful: endurance. They are not signs of failure. They are proof that we are still here, still standing despite the storms we've weathered. We live in a world that constantly pressures us to appear flawless. From filtered photos on social media to the way people only share the highlights of their lives, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that being strong means being untouched by pain. But real strength doesn't come from never being broken. Real strength comes from being broken and choosing to rise again. A scar is the mark left behind after healing. It means the wound didn't win. The pain didn't define us. We went through something, and we came out the other side changed, not weaker, but stronger. Imagine a person who has never faced hardship. Their journey may be smooth, but it lacks the depth that challenges bring. Now picture someone who has been knocked down, bruised, scarred, yet still gets up every single time. That person carries within them a kind of wisdom and resilience that only experience can teach. Their scars become part of their identity, not in a way that limits them, but in a way that elevates them. Every scar tells a story. Of pain, yes, but also of healing, courage, and the will to keep going. Take Muniba Mazari, for example. She didn't just survive a tragic accident. She transformed that moment into a turning point in her life. The physical scars she bears are visible, but so is the light that shines from within her. She didn't let her scars silence her. Instead, she allowed them to become a voice of empowerment. Her story is a living testimony to the idea that scars are not a sign of defeat. They are a sign of victory. They say, I went through the fire and I came out stronger. Too often we try to hide our scars as if they make us less worthy. We bury our pain, put on a brave face, and pretend that nothing ever hurt us. But in doing so, we lose a part of our authenticity. The truth is, vulnerability is not weakness. It's raw, it's real, and it's incredibly powerful. When we own our scars, we are no longer prisoners of our past. We become authors of our own narrative. Scars also teach us empathy. When you've been through darkness, you're more likely to recognize it in someone else. You start seeing beyond the surface. You learn to offer kindness, not judgment. You become a safe space for others because you know what it feels like to suffer in silence. Your scars allow you to connect deeply because they remind you of your own humanity. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired using gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them. The idea is that the object is more beautiful for having been broken. That's how we should view our own scars. We are not damaged. We are not less. We are simply human. And in our brokenness, there is profound beauty. Every scar holds a lesson. Sometimes it's about strength. Sometimes it's about forgiveness. Sometimes it's about letting go. And sometimes it's simply about survival. But whatever the lesson is, it becomes a part of who we are. And the more we own it, the more we grow. We don't need to erase our past to embrace our future. In fact, it's the lessons from our past that often shape the path ahead. When we shift our perspective on scars, we begin to walk differently. We hold our heads a little higher, not because we are arrogant, but because we've earned our place. We've fought battles no one knows about. We've cried tears no one saw. We faced nights that seemed endless. But we endured, and endurance in itself is a kind of quiet heroism. It takes courage to show your scars, to say that this is what I went through, and this is who I've become because of it. But when we do that, we give others permission to do the same. We create a space where people feel less alone, less ashamed, and more empowered to own their stories too. And that's where true healing begins. Not just for us, but for those around us. So the next time you look at your scars, whether they are etched on your skin or imprinted on your heart, don't hide them, don't shrink because of them. Instead, remember what they really mean. They are not signs that you were broken beyond repair. They are signs that you survived, you endured. You came out stronger, wiser, and more beautifully human than before. Your story holds the power to heal not just you, but others too. We often underestimate the impact of our experiences, thinking that our pain is ours alone, that what we've been through is too personal or too small to matter to anyone else. But stories are powerful. They are bridges between hearts, mirrors for others to see themselves in, and lifelines for those who are silently struggling. When you share your story, especially the parts that once hurt the most, you open the door for someone else to find courage in their own journey. Everyone has a story. Some are filled with heartbreak, others with triumph after long battles. But every story matters. The act of speaking your truth, of owning your narrative, is deeply transformative. For yourself, it becomes a way of reclaiming power. For others, it becomes a source of hope. When someone hears your story and sees themselves in your words, a connection is made. They realize they are not alone. They see that if you made it through, maybe they can too. We often think healing is something we must do in isolation, behind closed doors, away from the eyes of the world. But healing can also happen in community, in connection, in vulnerability. Sometimes a simple act of someone saying, "I've been there too," can be the most healing thing of all. It reminds us that our pain doesn't isolate us, it unites us. It unites us. The very thing we thought would push others away can become the thing that draws them closer. When Muniba Mazari speaks about her journey, from the moment of the accident to how she rebuilt her life piece by piece, she does not just talk about pain. She talks about transformation. She does not just recount events. She offers hope, strength, and light. Her story has touched millions not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Because it shows that even in the darkest of times, we still have the power to choose what our story will become. We all carry wounds. But when we begin to talk about them, when we allow our stories to be heard, those wounds begin to lose their power over us. We shift from being victims of our past to being authors of our future. Sharing your story is not about seeking pity. It's about offering perspective. It's about saying, "There's something, and here's what I've learned." That wisdom, born from pain, is more valuable than any textbook or theory. It's real, it's raw, and it's relatable. The truth is, someone somewhere needs your story. They need to hear how you navigated through grief, how you managed to keep going when everything felt like it was falling apart. They need to know that survival is possible, that happiness after heartbreak is real, that peace can follow chaos. Your story can be the roadmap they need, the spark that reignites their will to fight, the comfort that soothes their restless heart. It's easy to look at our stories and see only the pain, but if we look deeper, we'll also see the strength. We'll see the growth, the resilience, the moments we stood tall, even when we wanted to fall. These are the parts of our story that need to be told. Not because they make us look strong, but because they show the human capacity to rise, to rebuild, and to rediscover purpose even after life shatters. In a world that often values perfection, sharing our imperfect stories becomes a radical act of courage. It's a declaration that says, "No, I'm not hiding anymore." It's choosing to stand in the light, scars and all, and allowing others to see the journey behind the smile. That transparency creates trust. It builds connection. And most importantly, it invites healing, not just for the storyteller, but for the listener too. Sometimes we think our story isn't big enough or dramatic enough to make a difference. But healing doesn't always come from grand gestures or dramatic moments. It often comes from the quiet honesty of a story told with heart. A simple sentence, a shared experience, a moment of raw truth can shift someone's perspective. It can be the beginning of their own healing journey. When we keep our stories locked away, we keep our power hidden. But when we speak, we reclaim that power. We stand up not just for ourselves, but for everyone who's been told to stay silent, to keep the pain inside, to pretend that everything is fine. Your voice becomes a light in their darkness. Your words become a guide for their healing. There's a unique kind of bravery in turning your pain into purpose. It doesn't mean you forget the hurt or pretend it didn't happen. It means you use it. You allow it to shape you into someone who helps others rise. Your story, told with truth and heart, becomes a tool for transformation, not just for yourself, but for everyone who hears it and finds themselves reflected in your journey. Sharing your story also teaches you compassion for yourself and for others. You begin to see your past not as a source of shame, but as a source of strength. You recognize that healing is a process and every step matters. You realize that by owning your story, you take control of the narrative. You decide what meaning your experiences will carry. And when you do that, you not only begin to heal, you begin to inspire. Embracing vulnerability is the first step toward true strength. For far too long, vulnerability has been misunderstood. It has been labeled as weakness, as fragility, as something to hide or suppress. But in reality, vulnerability is one of the most courageous acts a person can choose. It means showing up as your true self without masks or defenses, despite the fear of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. And in that raw, unfiltered honesty lies an unmatched power. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we stop pretending. We stop trying to live up to unrealistic expectations of perfection. Instead, we begin to live authentically. We admit that we are human, that we have fears, that we have scars, and that we are still learning. This kind of openness does not weaken us. It frees us. It creates space for genuine connection, for healing, and for growth. Vulnerability is not about broadcasting every wound, but about being real enough to say, I'm not perfect, but I'm here and I'm trying. There is incredible bravery in opening up about the moments that broke you, in sharing the parts of your life you once felt ashamed of. It takes inner strength to stand up and say, this is what I've been through, knowing that others may not understand or worse, may judge. But every time you choose vulnerability over silence, you reclaim a part of your power. You stop being defined by your pain and start being defined by your courage to face it. Look at Muniba Mazari. Her story is a reflection of the strength that comes from vulnerability. She could have chosen to stay quiet, hide the parts of her story that were painful. Instead, she chose to speak. She shared her truth, not just the polished parts, but the painful ones too. In doing so, she didn't just empower herself, she gave others the strength to confront their own fears, to speak their own truths. Her vulnerability became her superpower. True strength is not built in the moments when everything's going well. It's built in the moments when everything falls apart and you still choose to keep going. And it's in those moments when you're honest about how hard it is that you discover just how strong you truly are. Vulnerability strips away the illusion of control, and what remains is your essence, your determination, your soul. When you embrace vulnerability, you give yourself permission to feel. You stop numbing the pain, and you start facing it. Missed was done. You allow yourself to grieve, to cry, to question. And in doing so, you begin to heal. You create space for emotions to flow, for wounds to be acknowledged, and for scars to be honored. Strength doesn't mean pushing through without feeling. It means feeling everything and still choosing to move forward. Vulnerability also fosters empathy. When you allow yourself to be seen in your most honest form, you become more understanding of others. You start recognizing that everyone is fighting a battle you can't see. You begin to listen more, judge less, and extend grace more freely. Vulnerability softens the edges of the human experience and reminds us that we are all more alike than we are different. In relationships, vulnerability is the glue that holds people together. It's what allows love to deepen, trust to form, and support to be offered. When you say, I need help, or I'm hurting, or I don't have it all figured out, you invite others into your world in a meaningful way. You allow real connection to take place, not based on roles or appearances, but on truth. And those kinds of connections are the ones that truly matter. Society often teaches us to hide our emotions, to put on a brave face, to never let them see you sweat. But strength isn't about never breaking down. It's about what you do after the breakdown. It's about picking yourself up time and time again, with a little more wisdom and a little more heart. And every time you choose to rise, even with trembling hands and a broken heart, you become stronger than you were before. When you own your vulnerability, you stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You begin to see that your value doesn't depend on how put together you appear, but on the truth of who you are. You start honoring your emotions, your journey, your voice. And from that place of authenticity, you start building a life that's not just successful on the outside, but meaningful on the inside. Vulnerability also inspires. When people see you being real, sharing your struggles, your doubts, your setbacks, they feel seen, they feel understood. You become a reminder that it's okay to not have all the answers, that it's okay to be in process. And in a world that so often demands perfection, your honesty becomes a breath of fresh air. Choosing vulnerability doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're brave enough to face yourself. It means you're strong enough to carry your truth and gentle enough to show your humanity. And that balance of strength and softness, of grit and grace, is what makes you powerful beyond measure.